It's 3 in the morning. You're wide awake. Again. Your heart is beating a little faster than it should. Your mind is already running through a list of things you can't control. You feel this strange mixture of exhaustion and tension at the same time. Like your body is wired, but your soul is completely depleted. And maybe you've noticed something else. Something that worries you more than the sleeplessness itself. You've been feeling different. Emotionally, you're not quite yourself. Things that never used to bother you now make you want to cry or snap. You feel overwhelmed by ordinary moments. A conversation with your husband, a minor inconvenience at work, a text message at the wrong time, and you think to yourself, what is happening to me? Why do I feel like this? Why does everything feel so heavy? Here is what I want you to know before we go any further. You are not losing your mind. You are not becoming someone else. And your body is absolutely not broken. What is happening to you has a name. It has a biological explanation. And today we are going to talk about it in a way that most doctors have never taken the time to explain to you. Because here is the truth that researchers are now beginning to understand, and that most women in perimenopause and menopause have never been told. Menopause itself may not be the real problem. It may be dysregulated cortisol that is making your menopause dramatically worse. And once you understand this, once you see how this one hormone has been quietly hijacking your sleep, your emotions, your energy, and your sense of self, everything starts to make sense. And more importantly, everything starts to become fixable. So stay with me, because what I am about to share with you may be the most important thing you have heard about your health in years. Let's start with cortisol. Most people think of cortisol simply as the stress hormone. And yes, that is part of what it does. But cortisol is far more complex than that. It is one of the master hormones of the entire human body. It regulates your blood sugar. It influences your immune system. It controls your sleep and wake cycle. It affects your mood, your memory, your digestion, and your cardiovascular function. Cortisol is meant to rise in the morning to help you wake up and gradually fall throughout the day so that by evening, your body can shift into rest and repair mode. That rhythm, that beautiful, predictable curve, is called your circadian cortisol pattern. And in a healthy body, it works like clockwork. But here is what happens during perimenopause and menopause. As estrogen begins to decline, something goes wrong with that rhythm. Researchers at the University of California and other institutions have found that estrogen plays a critical role in regulating the HPA axis, that is, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is essentially the command center that controls your cortisol output. When estrogen drops, that regulatory system becomes less efficient. Your brain becomes more reactive to perceived threats. Your adrenal glands start firing cortisol at the wrong times. And instead of that calm, gradual decline in the evening, cortisol spikes when it should be falling. It surges at midnight. It peaks at 3 a.m. And it keeps your nervous system locked in a state of low-grade emergency, even when there is absolutely nothing wrong. This is why you wake up at 3 in the morning with your heart pounding and your thoughts racing. Not because something is actually wrong, but because your cortisol is spiking at exactly the wrong time, triggering your brain's alarm system as if there were a threat to your survival. And what most women don't realize is this: those nighttime cortisol spikes are not just disturbing your sleep. They are fueling your anxiety. They are intensifying your hot flashes. They are triggering the emotional overwhelm you feel during the day. They are causing the brain fog that makes you feel like you can't think clearly. They are amplifying every symptom of menopause because cortisol and estrogen are deeply intertwined. When one is out of balance, the other one suffers, and your entire hormonal ecosystem goes into a kind of chaos that feels completely out of your control. But here is the good news, and I want you to really hear this. You can interrupt that cycle. You can calm that cortisol response. You can begin to restore that evening rhythm. And when you do, the changes in how you feel can be remarkable. That is exactly what we are going to talk about today. 6 evening habits that work with your biology, not against it, to help calm menopause cortisol naturally. And I want you to pay special attention as we go through each one, because the habit I am going to share with you toward the end of this video may be the most powerful of all. Habit number 1. Stabilize your blood sugar before 7 p.m. This one surprises most women. Because when we think about cortisol, we think about stress. We think about anxiety or emotional overwhelm. We don't think about food. But the connection between blood sugar and nighttime cortisol spikes is one of the most overlooked mechanisms in menopausal health. Here's what happens. When your blood sugar drops too low in the evening, which can happen if you eat a light dinner, skip protein, or have refined carbohydrates that cause a rapid spike and crash, your body interprets that blood sugar drop as an emergency. And what does your body release in an emergency? Cortisol. Your adrenal glands pump out cortisol to raise your blood sugar back up, and if this happens at 2 or 3 in the morning, which it very often does, that cortisol surge wakes you up. Your heart pounds, your thoughts race, you feel that wave of anxious energy, and you have no idea that a simple dinner choice may have set the entire thing in motion. Researchers studying sleep and metabolic health have found that women in menopause are significantly more vulnerable to these nocturnal blood sugar fluctuations than younger women, in large part because estrogen also plays a role in insulin sensitivity. When estrogen drops, blood sugar regulation becomes less stable. The evening cortisol spike becomes more likely, and the 3 a.m. awakening becomes almost predictable. What to do about it? Before 7 p.m., eat a balanced dinner that includes a quality source of protein. Think salmon, eggs, lentils, or chicken, along with healthy fats and fiber-rich vegetables. If you feel hungry in the evening, instead of reaching for crackers or something sweet, try a small amount of almond butter, a few walnuts, or a hard-boiled egg. These foods slow digestion, keep your blood sugar stable through the night, and reduce the likelihood of that cortisol emergency response waking you at 3 a.m. This is not a diet tip. This is nervous system medicine. Habit number 2, magnesium in the evening. If there is one mineral that menopausal women are almost universally deficient in, it is magnesium. And the consequences of that deficiency on cortisol, sleep, mood, and nervous system health are profound. Magnesium is sometimes called nature's tranquilizer, and for good reason. It plays a direct role in regulating the activity of the HPA axis, which, as we discussed, is the system that controls cortisol output. Studies published in the journal Nutrients and supported by research from institutions including the University of Edinburgh have shown that low magnesium levels are associated with elevated cortisol, disrupted sleep, increased anxiety, and heightened sensitivity to stress. Essentially, when your magnesium is low, your nervous system becomes more reactive. Your stress response fires more easily, and your ability to come down from that stress response is severely impaired. During menopause, the problem compounds. Declining estrogen affects how your kidneys retain magnesium. Your cells become less efficient at using it. And the chronic stress of this hormonal transition depletes your magnesium reserves even further. It becomes a cycle that quietly makes everything worse. Foods rich in magnesium include dark leafy greens like spinach and Swiss chard, pumpkin seeds, almonds, black beans, and dark chocolate with a high cocoa content. One of the most effective things you can do is add a small handful of pumpkin seeds to your evening meal or enjoy a small square of 85% dark chocolate in the evening, not as a treat, but as targeted nutrition for your nervous system. Many women also find magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate taken in the evening to be deeply supportive of sleep quality and cortisol balance. These are highly absorbable forms that cross into the brain more effectively than other types. Think of it as giving your nervous system the signal it has been desperately waiting for. It is safe. You can rest now. Habit number 3. Tart cherry, the natural melatonin and cortisol regulator you've probably never heard of. Most women have heard of melatonin. Fewer have heard of tart cherry, and even fewer understand why this small fruit may be one of the most powerful evening tools available to menopausal women struggling with sleep and cortisol. Tart cherries, particularly the Montmorency variety, are one of the only natural food sources of melatonin. But what makes them truly remarkable is not just the melatonin content. It is the combination of melatonin with a class of antioxidants called anthocyanins, which have been shown in research from Northumbria University in the UK to actively reduce cortisol levels and decrease inflammatory markers associated with poor sleep and stress. A study published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that participants who consumed tart cherry juice experienced significantly improved sleep duration, improved sleep efficiency, and measurable reductions in urinary cortisol. For menopausal women who are dealing with both elevated cortisol and disrupted melatonin production, because estrogen also influences melatonin synthesis, this is an extraordinarily relevant finding. How to use it? A small glass of unsweetened tart cherry juice in the evening, approximately 30 to 60 minutes before bed, can begin to gently shift your cortisol rhythm and support your body's natural melatonin production. You can also find tart cherry in concentrated capsule form if you prefer to avoid the sugar in juice. Either way, this is one of the simplest, most evidence-supported evening habits you can add to your routine. And here is what I want you to picture. Your cortisol curve, that jagged, dysregulated spike that has been waking you up at 3 a.m., beginning to smooth out, beginning to descend the way it was always meant to. And your body, for the first time in months, receiving the signal that the day is over, that it is safe to rest. Habit number 4, a specific kind of evening breathing practice. I know, you have heard about breathing, you may have rolled your eyes, but stay with me for a moment, because what I am about to explain is not about relaxation in a vague, generic sense. It is about directly targeting the physiological mechanism that drives your cortisol spikes. Your autonomic nervous system has 2 modes. The first is the sympathetic mode, fight or flight, which is controlled by your sympathetic nervous system and drives cortisol release. The second is the parasympathetic mode, rest and digest, which is governed by the vagus nerve and actively suppresses cortisol. The problem for menopausal women is that declining estrogen and progesterone reduce vagal tone. Your vagus nerve becomes less effective at putting the brake on your stress response. Your sympathetic system runs hotter, cortisol stays elevated longer, and your nervous system gets stuck in a state researchers describe as chronic low-grade hyperarousal. Extended exhale breathing directly activates the vagus nerve. It stimulates the parasympathetic branch of your nervous system. And it has been shown in studies from Stanford and Harvard Medical School to measurably reduce cortisol, lower heart rate, and shift the brain from anxious hyperactivity toward calm, coherent function in as little as 5 minutes. The specific technique: inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 7 or 8. The extended exhale is the key. It is what triggers the vagal response and puts the brake on your cortisol output. Do this for 5 to 10 minutes in the evening, ideally after dinner and before you begin winding down for sleep. Some women like to place one hand on their heart and one on their belly during this practice, not for any mystical reason, but because physical touch activates oxytocin, which further supports the cortisol-lowering effect. This is not wellness advice. This is neuroscience, and it may be one of the most powerful 5 minutes of your entire day. Habit number 5. Herbal adaptogens in the evening, and the science behind why they work. The word adaptogen gets used a lot in wellness circles, but most people don't understand what it actually means. An adaptogen is a plant compound that helps regulate the body's stress response system, specifically the HPA axis, by normalizing cortisol output, not suppressing it completely, not artificially masking it, but genuinely helping the system recalibrate toward balance. For menopausal women dealing with dysregulated cortisol, certain adaptogens have very strong scientific backing. Let me walk you through the most important ones. Ashwagandha, particularly a standardized form called sensoril, has been studied extensively for its effects on cortisol, stress, and sleep. A randomized controlled trial published in Medicine found that sensoril ashwagandha reduced serum cortisol levels by over 27% in participants experiencing chronic stress, while also significantly improving sleep quality, energy levels, and measures of psychological well-being. For menopausal women, the benefits extend further. Ashwagandha has also been shown to support thyroid function and adrenal health, both of which are commonly disrupted during the menopausal transition. Rhodiola rosea is another adaptogen with remarkable evidence behind it. Research from the Swedish Herbal Institute has shown that rhodiola reduces the cortisol response to acute stress, improves mental clarity, and reduces burnout. which is particularly relevant for women who feel like their emotional resilience has been completely depleted. Schisandra berry is less well known, but deeply important. Traditional Chinese medicine has used it for centuries as a nerve tonic. Modern research confirms that Schisandra modulates the HPA axis and helps reduce the hypersensitivity of the stress response, that hair trigger quality that makes menopausal women feel like they react to everything with 10 times the emotional intensity they used to. And then there are the herbs specifically targeted at the hormonal dimension of menopause. Sage leaf has been studied in clinical trials for its effects on hot flashes and night sweats, with research published in Advances in Therapy showing meaningful reductions in hot flash frequency with consistent use. Red clover, rich in phytoestrogens called isoflavones, has been shown to support hormonal balance during the estrogen-declining years of perimenopause and menopause. Black cohosh has decades of research behind its use for menopausal symptoms, including mood disruption, sleep disturbance, and vasomotor symptoms. And chasteberry, also called vitex, has been used historically to support progesterone balance, which is significant because declining progesterone is often what drives the anxiety and sleep disruption that women experience in early perimenopause. Some women have asked me about formulas that combine these ingredients, because sourcing 8 or 9 separate supplements is neither practical nor affordable for most people. If you are looking for a comprehensive cortisol and menopause support blend that brings together these researched ingredients, I'll place the link to what I recommend in the first pinned comment and in the description below. It is not something I mention lightly. But for women who want the convenience of having these compounds working together, it can make a meaningful difference. Habit number 6, the evening light and temperature protocol, and why your circadian rhythm is more disrupted than you realize. This is the habit I saved for last, and I want you to understand why it may be the most foundational of everything we have discussed today. Your cortisol rhythm, that morning rise and evening fall, is not controlled only by your hormones. It is controlled by light, specifically by a tiny region of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which acts as your internal biological clock. This clock reads light signals from your environment and uses them to orchestrate the timing of cortisol release, melatonin production, body temperature fluctuation, and dozens of other physiological processes. In a natural environment, as the sun sets and light dims, your biological clock receives the signal to begin suppressing cortisol and initiating the melatonin cascade that prepares your body for sleep. But what do most of us do in the evening? We sit in brightly lit rooms. We stare at screens that emit blue light, the specific wavelength that your brain interprets as morning sunlight. We override the sunset signal entirely. And for menopausal women whose cortisol systems are already dysregulated, this is extraordinarily disruptive. You are essentially telling your brain that it is still noon when it is 9 in the evening, and your cortisol responds accordingly, staying elevated, staying activated, keeping you in a state of physiological readiness that your body was never meant to sustain at that hour. Research from Harvard's Division of Sleep Medicine has documented that blue light exposure in the evening can suppress melatonin production for up to 4 hours and delay the natural cortisol decline by a similar window. For a menopausal woman who is already experiencing cortisol dysregulation, this can be the difference between falling into deep, restorative sleep and lying awake until 2 a.m. Here is what the science recommends. In the 2 hours before bed, dim the lights in your home significantly. If you use screens, apply a warm light filter or use blue light blocking glasses. Lower the temperature in your bedroom to between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, because body temperature drop is one of the key triggers for melatonin release, and many menopausal women run warmer due to hormonal changes. If possible, spend 10 to 15 minutes outside in the evening around sunset, allowing your eyes to receive the natural orange and red light frequencies that actively signal your biological clock to begin the cortisol shutdown sequence. This is not a lifestyle preference. It is circadian medicine. And it works precisely because it targets the root of the problem, not just the symptoms of cortisol dysregulation, but the environmental inputs that are actively making it worse every single evening. Now, I want to take a moment before we wrap up, because I think this is important. If you have been struggling with the sleep, with the emotions, with the feeling that your body is betraying you, I want you to know something. You are not weak. You are not dramatic. You are not just anxious. What you are is a woman whose nervous system has been navigating one of the most hormonally complex transitions the human body goes through, without adequate support, without adequate information, and in many cases, without a single doctor who sat down and explained to you why you feel the way you feel. The symptoms you are experiencing are real. The 3 a.m. awakenings are real. The emotional overwhelm is real. The brain fog is real. The sense that you are running on empty while somehow still being unable to rest, that is real. And it is not a character flaw. It is cortisol dysregulation meeting hormonal transition. It is your nervous system trying to protect you with tools that were never designed for this situation. And it is absolutely genuinely addressable. Many women who have implemented the combination of what we discussed today, blood sugar stability in the evening, magnesium, tart cherry, extended exhale breathing, adaptogenic support, and circadian light management, have reported feeling meaningfully better within 2 to 4 weeks. Not perfect, but better, calmer, more themselves, sleeping longer stretches, waking up with less of that racing, panicked feeling like their emotional responses are proportionate again. And if you are curious about the specific supplement blend I mentioned, the one containing sensoril ashwagandha, rhodiola, schisandra, sage leaf, red clover, black cohosh, and chasteberry, you will find the link in the first pinned comment and in the description below. Some women find it incredibly helpful as part of a broader evening protocol. It is there for you if you want it. Before I close, I want to say one more thing, and I want you to really hear it. Your body is not failing you. Your nervous system is not broken. Your hormones are not your enemy. They are changing. Yes, they are recalibrating. Yes. And in that process, they are asking for something from you. Not punishment, not more restriction, not more pushing through. They are asking for support, for gentleness, for the kind of intentional, biologically informed care that your body has earned after decades of everything you have given it. The evening hours are not wasted time. They are some of the most important hours of your hormonal day. What you eat, how you breathe, what light you expose yourself to, what you give your nervous system in those final hours before sleep. All of it is shaping your cortisol rhythm, your sleep architecture, your emotional resilience, and your experience of menopause itself. You have more power here than anyone has ever told you. And you are not alone, not even close. If this video helped you feel seen, if it gave you language for what you have been experiencing, or hope that things can shift, please consider sharing it with a woman in your life who might need to hear it too. Leave a comment below telling me which habit resonated most with you. Your story matters, and it might be exactly what another woman needs to read today. Take care of yourself tonight. You deserve it.